Trump is getting filleted right now on television over the abortion issue and the stance that he just took. It'll happen all night. It'll happen tomorrow morning. Is that his fault or theirs?
Donald Trump is going to get filleted no matter what he says about whatever issue. He could say that the eclipse was an amazing experience, and by the way, it was. Oh. But he could say that, and somebody would say, yeah, it was Donald Trump's fault that the sun got blurted out for a while, and he should turn it back on. So this is nothing new. But here's a reality. There's going to be a choice in November between one person who believes that life does matter. Donald Trump, may not be as strong on the abortion issue as I am. I think life begins at conception. I don't think there's such a thing as a human being that is disposable or expendable, that doesn't have intrinsic worth and value. So for some of us, this isn't a political issue. It's not a legal issue. It's a moral issue. It's the equivalent of slavery, where you have people who think they can own another person and take their life if that person is in their way. And then there's the Democrat side, which believes essentially abortion is just simply a matter of choice, and you can have an abortion right up until the moment of birth. I'll take our position. I'll take Donald Trump's position over that one any day of the week, because that is the extreme one, Leland. So, yeah, the thing is set. I don't understand where Mike Pence is coming from today. This makes no sense. Him talking about retreating from his position. It was Trump that gave us 3 Supreme Court justices who led to the repeal of Roe Wade, which, by the way, I never thought was the big deal anyway. Roe Wade only sent it back to the states. It doesn't really encapsulate what ought to be a moral and spiritual decision. But, we can only go as far as the public is willing for us to go. And right now, quite frankly, I hate to admit it, but the public isn't with me in my position as much as I wish they were.
Fair enough. I return to the politics of it, right? You think about the RNC July 15th, August 19th, the Democratic National Convention, September 16th, if there is presidential debates, that's when they'll happen. Undoubtedly, look, abortion for every one of these data points is going to be, or points on the calendar is going to be an enormous issue. That said, Donald Trump had a choice to talk about all the things that we laid out that he could have claimed wins on Saturday, on Sunday, and on Monday, even today. And yet he always seems to be unable to not make himself the center of attention on, in this case, as we all pointed out, as you pointed out aptly, a lightning rod issue. Why is that?
Well, he did it in April. He didn't wait till October. I think that's probably a good idea. He staked out a position. It's a position some people aren't as happy with because they wanted him to be for a federal ban. But on the other hand, he's not waiting until October to come out with something that would create some controversy. This is out. Like I say, we have a clear choice in November between a person, the existing president, who used to be pro-life, Leland. He used to be adamantly pro-life, and he's Catholic. But now he's just played the political game of this and has gone to an extreme and radical position on abortion. It's that, or it's a person who actually was the most pro-life president in American history. Donald Trump, without doubt, was. More than the Bushes, more than Reagan, more than any of them.
Well, fair enough. And I guess you could also argue, pun intended, that put it out this morning, and at least some of the coverage of it was eclipsed by the eclipse, as we saw. My good buddy Chris Steyerwalt wrote a piece over the weekend saying that Trump can't win, but Biden could lose. And he points to polling in every one of the swing states that basically has Trump polling where he did in 2020, but Joe Biden underperforming. How worried should Republicans be that a lot can happen that is very good for Joe Biden in the next few months, and that Donald Trump, over the years, we saw it in 2016, we saw it in 2020, is still capped by this ceiling?
Well, I think there are a lot of people that are gravitating toward Trump that weren't doing that in 2020 or even 2016, particularly if you look at Hispanics, younger people, which is really the biggest surprise to me, but also African Americans. People are clearly seeing that the policies of this current administration are horrible for them. They can't afford gas, groceries, and they think that this is an administration that has abandoned God. They want to mutilate children because they have dysphoria over their gender. there are some real issues that are causing people to sit up and say, we can't keep going this direction. It makes no sense. It's insane. And whatever they think of Donald Trump and his tweets and his personality and sometimes his abrasive characteristics, they remember back that for 4 years, by golly, he cut taxes, deregulated things. The world was at peace. We didn't have an October 7th going on with Hamas butchering Jews just for the sport of it. We didn't have Russia invading Ukraine. We were energy independent for the first time in 75 years. And the average American family had $4,000 a year more in their pockets than they had before. People start remembering that during an election year.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.